Before I share what happened to me, I need you to do something. If you've ever felt trapped, controlled, or questioned your own reality in a relationship, please hit that subscribe button right now. Like this video. And comment below if you've experienced anything similar. Your story matters. You're not alone. And what I'm about to tell you might save someone's life. The sound of the deadbolt clicking into place from the outside became so normal that I stopped noticing it. Until the day I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd opened a door by myself. That's when I understood. My husband wasn't protecting me. He was hiding me. But to understand how I ended up standing at that locked door, my hands shaking as I finally picked the lock with a bobby pin I'd hidden for 3 weeks, I need to take you back 2.5 years. Back to when Marcus was my dream man. Back to when I thought his protectiveness was love. Back to before I knew that on the other side of that locked door wasn't just freedom. It was the truth about who my husband really was. I met Marcus at a coffee shop in downtown Portland on a rainy October morning. I know that sounds like the beginning of every romantic comedy ever made, but that's exactly how it felt. I was 26, working 60-hour weeks at a marketing firm, running on 4 hours of sleep and my third espresso of the day. I was so focused on my laptop that I didn't notice him until he was standing next to my table. "You're going to burn out if you keep going like this," he said, and I looked up ready to tell this stranger to mind his own business. But then I saw his smile. Warm. Concerned. The kind of smile that made you feel like you mattered. "Excuse me," I said, but without the edge I'd intended. "I've been watching you for the past hour," he admitted, and somehow it didn't sound creepy. "You haven't looked up once. Haven't taken a real breath. I used to be like that. It nearly killed me." We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me he'd burned out in his 20s, had a minor health scare, and completely restructured his life. He worked in tech, something with cybersecurity that I didn't fully understand, but he worked from home most days and had learned to prioritize balance. He asked me about my life, my dreams, my fears. And for the first time in years, someone was actually listening. Marcus was everything I didn't know I needed. Attentive. Thoughtful. He remembered the small things I mentioned in passing, that I loved yellow roses, that I'd always wanted to visit Iceland, that my mother's birthday was coming up. On our third date, he showed up with yellow roses and a book about Iceland he'd annotated with notes about places we could visit together. That together made my heart skip. We moved fast. Too fast, I can see that now. But at the time it felt like finally finding someone who understood me. After 6 months, he asked me to move in with him. He owned a beautiful house on the outskirts of the city. Modern, secluded, surrounded by trees. Our own private paradise, he called it. The house was gorgeous. Floor-to-ceiling windows, an open floor plan, a kitchen I'd always dreamed of having. There was just one thing that seemed odd. All the windows had these heavy-duty locks, and the doors had deadbolts that could be locked from both sides. When I asked about it, Marcus explained that there'd been a string of break-ins in the area. He was just being cautious. Made sense. Life with Marcus was perfect. He cooked breakfast for me every morning, made sure I had everything I needed, constantly told me how much he loved me. My friends commented on how attentive he was. "You're so lucky," they'd say. "He's so protective of you." And I believed them. Felt lucky. The first real sign came about 4 months after I moved in. I was getting ready for a girls' night, something I did once a month with my college friends, when Marcus came into the bedroom looking concerned. "You're still planning to go out tonight?" he asked. "Yeah, it's girls' night. I told you about it last week." He sat on the bed, looking troubled. "I know, Did you see the news? There was another attack downtown last night." Woman walking to her car, broad daylight. I hadn't seen the news. I felt my stomach tighten. Really? I'm just worried about you, Sarah. What if something happens? I couldn't live with myself if... He trailed off, shaking his head. I ended up canceling. Marcus held me that night and told me how much he loved me, how he couldn't bear the thought of losing me. It felt romantic, felt like love, but it started a pattern. Every time I made plans to go out, there was a reason it wasn't safe. Storm was coming. The roads were icy. There was an accident on the highway. Someone had posted on the neighborhood app about suspicious activity. There was always something. First, my friends were understanding. Then they started getting annoyed. "He's being paranoid," my best friend Jamie said. "You can't just stop living your life because Marcus is anxious." But Marcus wasn't anxious. He was calm, reasonable, always backing up his concerns with news articles or statistics or neighborhood reports. And when I did push back, when I said I was going out anyway, he'd get this look. Not angry, just deeply hurt. Like I was choosing my friends over his peace of mind. Like I didn't care about his feelings. So I stopped pushing. I stopped making plans. It was easier that way. The next change was more subtle. Marcus suggested I work from home more often. His reasoning made sense. I was stressed, the commute was killing me, I could be just as productive at home. My boss agreed to let me work remotely 3 days a week. Then 3 days became 4. Then every day except for essential in-person meetings. Marcus was so supportive, setting up a beautiful home office for me, making sure I had everything I needed. He'd bring me lunch at my desk, check in on me throughout the day. "Just want to make sure you're taking breaks," he'd say. Within 8 months of living together, I'd quit my job entirely. Marcus had been offered a huge promotion, and we didn't need my income anymore. "You've been working yourself to death for years," he said. "Let me take care of you. You deserve to rest." Sounded like a dream, and for a while it was. But something shifted after I quit working. I didn't notice it at first. It was so gradual. But Marcus started monitoring things. He wanted to know where I was going if I left the house, who I was talking to, what websites I was visiting. He'd check my phone occasionally, always with a smile. "Just making sure you're safe," he'd say. "You know how crazy things are online." I started to feel like I was being watched. Even when Marcus was working in his home office, I felt his presence. The house that had seemed so beautiful began to feel smaller. Those floor-to-ceiling windows that brought in so much light also meant anyone could see in. And Marcus kept the curtains drawn more and more often. "It's for privacy," he'd explain. "We don't need neighbors watching our every move." The day everything changed, the day I realized what was really happening, started like any other day. Marcus came into the bedroom at 6:30 a.m., already dressed for the day. This was unusual. He rarely went into the office anymore. "I have an important meeting downtown today," he said, kissing my forehead. "I'll probably be gone most of the day." "Okay," I said, still half asleep. "What time will you be back?" "Not sure. Could be late. There's food in the fridge. I'll text you updates." He kissed me again, this time on the lips. "I love you. Stay safe." I heard him leave through the front door. Heard his car start. Heard him drive away. It wasn't until 2 hours later, after I'd showered and made coffee and settled into the living room with a book, that I decided to go check the mail. We'd been expecting a package, and I thought maybe it had arrived. I walked to the front door and reached for the handle. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. The door was locked. But not with the regular lock, with the deadbolt. The deadbolt that locked from the outside. My first thought was that Marcus had made a mistake. He'd locked it out of habit, not thinking about the fact that I was still inside. I'd just call him and he'd come back and unlock it. But when I called his phone, it went straight to voicemail. I tried the back door. Also locked from the outside. The sliding glass door to the patio. Locked with a key, and I couldn't find the key anywhere. I checked every door, every window. Everything was locked. Everything required a key from the inside or could only be unlocked from the outside. I was locked in. My hands started shaking as the reality settled over me. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. Marcus had locked me inside the house. I called him again. Voicemail. Sent a text. Marcus, the doors are locked. Can't get out. Where are the keys? No response. I waited an hour. Then two. My texts became more urgent. Marcus, this isn't funny. I need to get out. What if there's an emergency? Still nothing. That's when the fear really set in. Not just fear of being locked in, but fear of what it meant. Why would Marcus lock me in? Why wouldn't he answer his phone? What if something happened to him? What if I needed to get out and couldn't? I spent the next 4 hours in a spiral of anxiety, texting Marcus every 30 minutes, calling, leaving voicemails. I considered breaking a window, but the windows were that safety glass, the kind that doesn't shatter easily. And even if I could break one, we were surrounded by trees. The nearest neighbor was a quarter-mile away. Around 3 p.m. my phone buzzed. Finally. Sorry baby, meeting ran long. I'll be home by 6. Everything okay? I stared at the message. Everything okay? I typed back. Marcus, I'm locked in. Why are all the doors locked from the outside? His response came quickly. For your safety. We talked about this. I always lock up when I leave. Better safe than sorry with all the crime in the area. We had never talked about this. I don't have keys, I typed. What if there's an emergency? There won't be. I'll be home soon. Love you. Felt sick. This wasn't protection. This was something else entirely. When Marcus finally came home at 6:30 p.m., I was waiting by the door. I heard the deadbolt turn, and then he walked in with a smile and a bag from my favorite Thai restaurant. Hey beautiful, I brought dinner. You locked me in, I said. My voice was shaking. You locked every door from the outside. He set the food down on the entryway table, looking confused. Yeah, I always do that. It's safer that way. Marcus, I couldn't get out. What if there had been a fire? What if I'd needed to leave? He stepped closer, putting his hands on my shoulders. His touch, which usually comforted me, now made my skin crawl. Sarah, you're overreacting. You didn't need to leave. You had everything you needed here. And there wasn't a fire. That's not the point. The point, he interrupted, his voice still calm but with an edge I'd never heard before, is that I'm keeping you safe. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is out there? How many women go missing every day? How many break-ins happen in broad daylight? I lock the doors because I love you. Because I can't bear the thought of something happening to you. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream. But the way he was looking at me, so earnest, so concerned, like I was the one being unreasonable, made me doubt myself. Was I overreacting? Was this normal? Was I being ungrateful? I need to be able to leave if I want to, I said weakly. Marcus pulled me into a hug. Of course, baby. I'll make sure you have a key. I'm sorry I scared you. That wasn't my intention at all. He did give me a key the next day. A single key which he handed me with a smile. For emergencies only, okay? I really do feel better when I know the house is secure. I put the key on my keychain. Tested it in the front door to make sure it worked. Did. But 2 days later, when Marcus left for another meeting, I went to use my key and it didn't work. He'd changed the locks. When I confronted him that evening, he looked genuinely surprised. The locks. Oh, Sarah, I had to change them. Our old keys were copied online. There's been this whole thing about it. I read an article. Let me find it. He showed me an article about a security vulnerability in certain lock brands. Seemed legitimate. He gave me a new key, apologizing profusely for not telling me sooner. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But something inside me had shifted. A small voice in the back of my mind was whispering that something was very, very wrong. Over the next few weeks, I started testing my boundaries, casually mentioning that I wanted to go to the grocery store, suggesting we visit my parents, saying I'd like to take a walk around the neighborhood. Every suggestion was met with a reason why it wasn't a good idea. The weather was bad. My parents could come to us. The neighborhood wasn't safe for walking. Hadn't I heard about the coyotes? And every time Marcus left the house, I was locked in. He always made sure to do it when I was in the shower or on a phone call, so I wouldn't see him do it. But I started listening for it. That click of the deadbolt. That sound that meant I was trapped. I started keeping track. Marcus locked me in every single time he left. And he was leaving more and more often. Meetings, errands, work events. Sometimes he'd be gone for hours with no explanation of where he'd been. My phone became my only connection to the outside world. But even that felt monitored. Marcus had set up our phone plan and he had access to everything, my calls, my texts, my location. I'd catch him looking at my phone sometimes, scrolling through my messages with that same concerned smile. Just making sure everything's okay, he'd say. You know how dangerous scams are these days. I started deleting my search history. I don't even know why at first, it was just instinct. But then I realized I was searching things like, what is controlling behavior? And how to know if you're in an abusive relationship? And how to escape a locked house? The word escape kept coming up. Like I was in prison. Was I in prison? The turning point came 3 months after Marcus first locked me in. I'd been careful, so careful to act normal. To not let on that I was aware of what was happening. I smiled when he came home. I thanked him for taking care of me. I didn't complain about being locked in. But inside I was planning. I'd found tutorials online about how to pick locks. I'd been practicing with bobby pins on the bathroom door lock when Marcus was asleep. I'd gotten pretty good at it. I also started watching Marcus more carefully. His patterns, his schedule, his habits, and I noticed something odd. On Thursdays, he was always gone from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Every single Thursday like clockwork. And on Thursdays he never called. Never texted. It was like he completely disappeared. One Thursday morning after Marcus locked me in and drove away, I put my plan into action. I'd been keeping my bobby pins hidden inside a book on the nightstand. Marcus never looked at my books. I'd practiced this lock specifically, timing myself. I could usually get it open in about 5 minutes. My hands were shaking so badly it took me almost 15. But finally I heard that beautiful click of the lock opening. I stood at that door for a full minute before I had the courage to turn the handle. It opened. I was outside. The sun was bright, too bright. I realized I hadn't been outside in daylight in over a month. I'd stopped even trying. I wanted to run. Every instinct told me to run, to get in my car and drive as far away as possible. But my car keys were gone. Marcus had taken them months ago, said something about needing to use my car because his was in the shop. He'd never given them back. So instead I started walking. The nearest neighbor's house was a 1/4 mile down the road. I'd walk there, ask to use their phone, call. Who? The police. And tell them what? That my husband locked me in for my own safety. Would they even believe me? I was halfway down the driveway when I saw it. A car pulling into our neighbor's driveway. Our neighbor, who I'd never actually met because Marcus said they preferred privacy and we should respect that. The car was Marcus's car. Froze. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. Why would Marcus be at the neighbor's house? He said he was at a meeting downtown. And then I saw who got out of the car. Marcus. And a woman. A beautiful woman with dark hair, wearing professional clothes. She was laughing at something he'd said. He put his arm around her waist as they walked toward the house. And that's when I saw it. On her left hand, catching the sunlight. A wedding ring. Everything stopped. The world, my breath, my heart. Everything just stopped. I stood there, probably visible from where they were. But they were so focused on each other they didn't see me. They walked into the house together. The house where Marcus went every Thursday. The house that was supposed to be our neighbor's. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for my legs to start shaking. Long enough for the truth to sink in, piece by terrible piece. Marcus wasn't just controlling. He wasn't just keeping me locked up for my safety. He was married to someone else. Our neighbor wasn't a neighbor. It was his other wife. The house where I lived, where I was locked in like a prisoner, was his second home. His secret home. And I was his secret. That's why he locked me in. Not to protect me. Hide me. To make sure I never accidentally walked outside and was seen by her. To make sure his two worlds never collided. Everything made sense now. The isolated house. The locked doors. The monitoring. The scheduling. Every Thursday he went to his real life. His other life. The one where he had a wife who could leave the house, who had friends, who had freedom. And I was just... what? Backup. A side piece he kept locked away. The rage that hit me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. White-hot, all-consuming rage. My hands clenched into fists. I wanted to march over to that house and bang on the door and scream the truth at her. I wanted to destroy everything he'd built. But more than that, I wanted to be smart. I wanted to do this right. I forced myself to turn around. To walk back to the house. To go inside and close the door behind me. And then I picked up my phone and I started documenting everything. I took photos of every locked door, every window, every lock that required a key. I took screenshots of our text conversations where he dismissed my concerns. I went into Marcus's home office, something he'd told me never to do, and I started searching. What I found made me feel physically sick. Papers showing he'd purchased our house under an LLC. Documents for another property, the neighbor's house, also under his name. Insurance papers listing different beneficiaries. And photos. Photos of him with her, clearly spanning years. Photos from their wedding. A wedding that happened 2 years before he even met me. He'd been married the whole time. Every word he'd said to me was a lie. Every promise, every declaration of love, every moment of protecting me. All of it was in service of keeping me hidden from his real life. I photographed everything. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence I could find. I sent it all to myself through an encrypted email. Something I'd researched specifically for this moment. And then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I went back to the living room and picked that lock closed from the inside. Took me another 15 minutes, but I managed it. When Marcus came home that evening, nothing looked disturbed. The door was locked just as he'd left it. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing my cheek. Smiled. "Fine. Quiet." "How was your meeting?" "Exhausting," he said, loosening his tie. "But productive." I watched him make dinner. Watched him pretend to be my loving, protective husband. And the whole time I was planning my next move. Over the next week I created a routine. Every Thursday, as soon as Marcus left, I'd pick the lock and go outside. I'd walk to the main road, away from his other house, and I'd use the payphone at the gas station there. Yes, an actual payphone. The only one I could find that still worked. Called my parents first. Told them everything. They wanted to call the police immediately, but I stopped them. I need to do this right, I said. I need evidence that will stand up. I need to make sure he can't talk his way out of this. My dad, a retired lawyer, agreed. Document everything, he said. Get copies of those documents. He'd been being careful. But you married me, Rachel said. And you committed fraud against me. You used marital funds to support her. You lied about your whereabouts. You forged documents. Marcus stood up. Get out of my house, Sarah. Or I'll call the police and have you arrested for trespassing and breaking and entering. I looked at Rachel. She nodded. We both stood up. We're not doing this alone, I said. We have a lawyer. We have all of your documents. We have photos. And we have each other. And, Rachel added, pulling out her phone, we've been recording this entire conversation. The look on Marcus's face was almost worth everything he'd put me through. Almost. We walked out together, Rachel and I. The woman who was married to my boyfriend and the girlfriend of her husband. United in the rubble of our destroyed lives. The next few weeks were a blur of police reports, lawyer meetings, and restraining orders. Rachel filed for divorce immediately. I filed for a protection order based on the false imprisonment. Marcus fought everything. He hired an expensive lawyer and tried to paint me as unstable, obsessed, a stalker who had broken into his property. But we had too much evidence. The locks that could only be opened from outside. My texts begging to be let out. Rachel's testimony about his controlling behavior. The district attorney was interested in the false imprisonment angle, but without a legal marriage, it was harder to prove. Marcus's lawyer argued that I'd chosen to stay, that the locks were for mutual security, that I'd had keys and could leave any time. But then something unexpected happened. Another woman came forward. Her name was Jennifer. She'd seen the news coverage about Marcus and contacted Rachel's lawyer. She had her own story. 3 years ago, Marcus had met her at a conference. They'd dated for 8 months. He'd convinced her to move into a house he owned, a house about an hour from Portland. He'd slowly isolated her, monitored her, controlled her movements. And he'd locked her in. She'd eventually escaped, but she'd been too ashamed to report it. She thought it was her fault, that she'd somehow provoked his behavior. She'd moved out of state to get away from him. With Jennifer's testimony, the prosecutor had enough to pursue charges. False imprisonment, fraud, coercion. Marcus pleaded out in the end. He couldn't risk a trial where all 3 of us would testify. He served 18 months for false imprisonment and fraud. Not enough, in my opinion. But something. Rachel's divorce went through. She got the main house and most of the assets. I got nothing. We weren't married, so I had no legal claim to anything. But honestly, I didn't want anything from him except my freedom. The house where I'd been locked up, that went to Rachel too. She sold it immediately. Said she couldn't stand to own a place that had been used as a prison. I moved in with my parents for 6 months while I got back on my feet. It was harder than I thought it would be. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, panicking, thinking I was still locked in that house. I'd hear a door close and my heart would race. My therapist said it was PTSD. I was learning to live with it. Rachel and I stayed in touch. We'd meet for coffee sometimes, two women who'd been fooled by the same man, who'd survived something neither of us fully understood. She'd gotten her job back and was moving forward with her life. She was stronger than me, I think. Or maybe just better at hiding the damage. It's been 2 years now since that Thursday when I picked the lock and discovered the truth. 2 years since my world collapsed and rebuilt itself into something different. Okay. Not perfect. Not the person I was before Marcus. But okay. I moved to Seattle, started a new job in marketing again. I'm careful about dating. Maybe too careful. My therapist says I need to learn to trust again, but trust feels like a luxury I can't afford. Sometimes I still dream about that house. About the sound of the deadbolt clicking shut. About standing at the door with a bobby pin in my hand, my fingers shaking as I worked the lock. But in my dreams now, I always get out. I'm sharing this story because I need you to know something. If you feel trapped, if someone's protection feels more like prison, if you're being isolated from friends and family, if you're being monitored and controlled, that's not love. That's not safety. That's abuse. And you deserve better. I also need you to understand that leaving is possible. Might be complicated. Might be scary. It might require planning and patience and courage you're not sure you have. But you do have it. I know you do. 'Cause you're still here. You're still fighting. You're still looking for a way out. For me, it was learning to pick a lock with a bobby pin. For you, it might be something else. But there is always a way out. Always. Rachel told me something that stuck with me. She said, he wanted to make us small. To fit us into boxes he could control and manage. But we were always bigger than those boxes. We just forgot for a while. I'm remembering now. Remembering that I'm bigger than any cage someone tries to put me in. And so are you. If you're in a situation like mine, please reach out for help. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. Tell someone you trust. Document everything. Make a safety plan. You don't have to do this alone. And if you're reading this, or if you're listening to this story, and something about it resonates with you, please leave a comment. Share your story if you feel comfortable. The more we talk about these things, the more we can help each other survive them. I thought I was alone in that house, trapped behind those locked doors. But I wasn't alone. Rachel was going through the same thing. Jennifer had been through it before us. And there are probably others we don't even know about. We're not alone. None of us are. That's why I'm telling this story. That's why I'm sharing the worst thing that ever happened to me with thousands of strangers on the internet. Because maybe, just maybe, someone watching this is standing at their own locked door right now. And maybe hearing my story will give them the courage to pick that lock. You can get out. Promise you. You can get out. The sound of that deadbolt clicking shut used to be the most terrifying sound in my world. Now it's a reminder of what I survived. Of what I escaped. Free now. Really, truly free. And someday, if you're trapped like I was, you will be too. Thank you for watching my story. If this resonated with you, please subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And please leave a comment below. Your story matters. Your experience matters. You matter. Stay safe. Stay strong. And remember, there's always a way out.